Hello, my beautiful creating awareness people. I am on to talk a little bit about a session I did last night with my 6-month program gals, and I thought it might be cool to share a few little things that came through. So we had the focus of boundaries, and a lot of people haven't really understood the concept of boundaries. I was one of those people, right? So even our parents necessarily didn't know what boundaries were. So this is where we can take charge and start to implement these things and really make a difference in our own personal lives. So when you think about boundaries, you think about an interaction that you've had with someone and your body feels a bit like, oh, hang on, that's activated something within me, right? So it starts off as like a bit of a trigger point. So you're activated, you feel like, hang on, that didn't feel good, all right? And then you're like, all right, well, something needs to change. And this is where the boundaries can come in. So this is where being the observer of your emotions, where it is in your body, is really important, because you need to find out if it's just a trigger that you might need to work through, or if it is a boundary that's being crossed that you need to communicate with the person. And something I want to also mention is the whole point of boundaries is to have a closer, deeper connection with the other person, right? So boundaries you have with your partner, with your parents, with your siblings, with your family, your friends, colleagues, people that you interact with a lot. You'll have your own personal boundaries with the public per se, but boundaries are something you need to discover within yourself. The whole point is to protect yourself, right? This is you taking charge of your life and going, this doesn't feel good for me, and then setting the boundary for yourself to go, all right, well, if this keeps happening, this is what I'm going to do about it. So a lot of people get a bit confused and they think that a boundary is, say, for example, I don't like it when you raise your voice to me, right? So people think the boundary is you need to stop raising your voice to me. That's when I talk about the circle of control. You have no control over that person not raising their voice, right? The boundary is you have the conversation, right? This is a really important relationship to you. So you've got to have the conversation. That's a step towards it, right? And you say, I've found that when you raise your voice, I feel really, tense and tight, and I don't feel very connected to you. Everything you say after that, I'm just like in fight or flight, and I am not listening to anything you say because of your tone of voice. The boundary is you saying, if you're going to keep doing it, this is something that if it keeps repeating and you've made the request and they keep doing it anyway, this is where you go, all right, if you're going to keep raising your voice to me, I'm going to have to walk away. I don't want to come across rude or anything, but for my own protection, I don't want to be in that environment, so I'm going to walk away. So the boundary is the actual consequence or the action that you're going to take to protect yourself. Okay, you need to be in charge of this. This isn't for them. This isn't you going, well, you need to leave. You can ask that, that's fine, but you're putting the power in their hands. The boundary is you having the power. You taking back the power and going, I have the power to go, I'm not putting up with that because I care about myself enough to know that this feels horrible, and if you're not going to respect that, I'm going to walk away. So this is where boundaries can be a little bit blurred. People think that making a request to the person is the boundary. No, that's a request. That's something that you want from them, right? So, for example, you and I was talking about this last night, and it came up that someone might say something to you, and when you go to set the boundary, you're like, oh, I didn't like it when you said that. And then later on, you realize, hang on, it wasn't what they said, it's how they said it, because actually the words that they said weren't actually bad, but it was the way it came across that I felt very demeaned or judged, or they were criticizing me. And these are you feelings, right? So it's not them, it's you. But if they are someone who you care about, you can have the conversation and say, look, when you said that, for some reason, the tone that you used seemed to make me feel like you were judging me. And be curious. This is something I always say to people, just go in with curiosity. Why did you say it like that? Do you know that it kind of comes across like that? Because it could be a really healing moment for both of you in that circumstance. So I'm a big advocate for boundaries. My relationships have been so much better since putting boundaries in. And there's different levels of boundaries and different types of boundaries. So you've got your emotional boundaries. So you might have that person that calls you and just goes, oh, this thing happened, and they just dump on you, right? Or you might be someone who does that. This is what I mean. Like, really pay attention to what's happening. And then you can go, actually, I just realized I just called them and just dumped on them, and I didn't even ask how they were. Oof. You know, we have those moments, right? We're human. This is what I mean. This isn't something that you're going to fail and be bad at. It's a practice. We're going to practice this, and you're gonna get it wrong because it's practicing, and you're learning what this is. They're learning how to receive it, and we're learning how to communicate back and forth. So it's really important to understand that even when you go to set a boundary, it can be quite full on and daunting, but just stay with it, right? And practice. If you felt that you tried to set a boundary with someone and it didn't work, really analyze that and go, well, maybe how did it come across? Maybe I wasn't curious. Maybe I didn't ask enough questions to sort of see where they were at. Maybe I was really harsh, I came across really like, you need to stop doing that. And they got defensive, right? We know that we all want to protect ourselves and we get defensive of ourselves. So is it that, right? And then you're practicing. And if it's a really safe, healthy relationship, you can have the back and forth and go, oh, you know how last week I was trying to set this boundary. I realized that I might have come across a bit full on. So I'm really sorry about that. Can we try again? And this is what it is. It's a practice. This isn't a pass-fail test. None of this is a pass-fail test. It's a practice. We need to practice doing this because this is how we develop the skill. This is how we build that muscle. And I really find that the more and more you practice with safe people, you'll get more confident with the ones that you might be a little bit like, oh, I don't think they're going to take it well, but it has to happen, right? So practice with safe people first, with close friends or your partner or a family member. You feel safe to have these open conversations and just be honest with them. Hey, look, I'm practicing putting boundaries in. Are you open to me having a conversation with you about some things that have felt a bit funny for me? And I practice setting these boundaries with you. If they know that, their walls are already down, right? Their guard's down. They're not going to come at you like with the defenses, like, what do you want? What are you going to do? So really be conscious of the way you're communicating these practices, because you're also empowering the people around you. So when you set a boundary with your partner, for example, then you're giving them permission and exposure to something that they may not have experienced, and then they can start doing the same back to you, and that's how your relationship becomes a lot more connected, and you start to not feel that disconnect, because boundaries is a connection, because only you know what feels good for you. The person across from you may have all the good intentions in the world, and you're feeling bad in your body, and if they don't know, you're doing a disservice to them by just pretending like, oh, it's fine, I'll just sit with the horrible feeling, and I'll just slowly store that resentment within my body. And that's how we get sick. That's how we have disconnect from each other, because we're slowly building resentment because we haven't communicated that to them at all. So be really, really, really cautious of this, because as much as we're scared to set the boundaries, it's almost like choose your ugly, right? So are you going to sit in the uncomfortable feeling and just take it every time? Or are you going to get uncomfortable and have the conversation that might stop that constantly coming back at you? So really think about that. So there's the emotional, backtrack, So you got that person who calls and you get PTSD when you see their name on the phone. You're like, what's wrong now? You can have that boundary, look after yourself. We put so much responsibility on ourselves to be like, oh, I have to look after this person. They're obviously really struggling. I want to be there for them. Awesome. I encourage that. Check yourself first. If you're not in the right headspace to be having that phone call, once again, you're doing them a disservice, because you're not going to be able to give the energy exchange that they actually require. So if you're someone who does need to vent or have that dump, just ask the question, hey, look, I've just gone through something really full on and I'm feeling very emotional. Are you actually in the mental space or the space or whatever to take this call? If not, can we reschedule or I'll go find someone else, whatever, okay? Just check in. That's just respect. And I know I've been someone who's done that. Oh my God, this just happened. We do it in the heat of the moment. We're emotional. Our brains aren't thinking. This is why it's a practice. So just become aware of that so that you can then have the power to go, no, actually, I don't feel comfortable. And if you give your friend, for example, that power, then they have the same, like I said before, you will give them the power to do the same back to you when they're feeling like overwhelmed, and they can say, actually, no, I'm really struggling today. Because we want to help each other. But maybe they just need to get off the phone, shake off their stuff for the day, and then go, all right, I'll call you back in half an hour, babe. I'm feeling a little bit ick, But I reckon I could shift this in half an hour and then I could actually show up for you. So just hold in there and I'll be with you in half an hour. And just raise your vibration if you can. There are tools and tricks to make this work. But that boundary is, I'm not in a good space and I can't take on any more right now. Look after yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. We know this. So make sure your cup is full, all right? There's also material boundaries. So you lend your car out and it comes back and it's full of rubbish and you're like, it'd be really nice if the item that I've lent to you comes back the way that I gave it to you, right? Same with clothes. You know, your friend might borrow your clothes or your sister and, you know, they bring it back and it's got stains and it's dirty and they haven't washed it and it's like, here you go, here's your dress back. Cool, thank you, bye. The boundary is, if you're going to borrow my stuff, I expect it to come back the way that it came to you. So that's a boundary, right? And then we've got energy boundaries. So people and physical touch, there's sexual boundaries, there's heaps. And I don't want to go too far into it because that's a whole session. But, you know, if you're someone who doesn't like hugs, for example, I'm very bad for just going up and hugging people and then going, oh, you could feel it, right? But you need to take charge and say, look, sorry, I'm not a hugger. Sorry. Nothing against you. I'm just not a hugger, right? This is you looking after you because the other people don't know, right? The other people don't know. Or, you know, you get that inappropriate comment at work and they're like, look at you. And it's like, no. We're not doing that. I'm sorry, but that is not appropriate. I do not want you to make any comments about my body. Stand up for yourself. And this is where the self-love and the self-care come into it because, and you don't have to love yourself. You could be on the journey to starting to love yourself. But if you don't love yourself at all, this is where the insecurities come in, the worthlessness comes in. We don't think we're worth being respected within our own bodies, so we don't set these boundaries. But as soon as you do, you're going to just build that connection with the people around you that's going to be so much stronger. So I encourage you, I'm not going to go too far into it because this is what my 6-month program is all about, is going deep into these things and going back and forth with where you're at with that. But I just really thought it was important to share because it's a knowledge, right? We don't know about it until we know about it. So here I am telling you about it. And if you want to know more, feel free to message me and let me know. But start setting some boundaries, small ones. It doesn't have to be something massive. You could just not answer the call. They don't even know you're doing that. Just once or twice to build the confidence and go, oh, that felt good. I didn't have to take that call. My body feels like, okay, I can handle that. Cool. Well, now I probably need to have a conversation with my friend about checking in first or whatever the case may be. Boundaries are really, really important. But have an awesome day. I'm going to leave you with that. And reach out if you need anything. It's awesome seeing you guys again. And I will check back in soon. Bye.